There are images that need no explanation for those who lived at that time, but that seem almost otherworldly to those who grew up later. In this video, you'll see more than a century of memories condensed into vintage photos from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, records that show how the world has quietly but profoundly changed. In the 50s, everything seemed more rigid and organized. The streets had another rhythm. The cars were big, and technology was still taking its first timid steps. Families gathered around the television as if it were a rare, almost sacred event. Already in the 60s, the world began to accelerate. It was a decade of cultural transformations, behavioral changes, and new styles that today seem almost unrecognizable. The clothes, the haircuts, the streets, everything carried an identity of its own. In the 70s, the aesthetic changed for good. More vivid colors, bold patterns, and a sense of freedom that appears in every photograph. It is a decade that today seems to have been captured in another visual universe. In the 80s, technology began to invade everyday life. Primitive computers, large electronic devices, and an extremely striking pop culture. Everything was exaggerated, brilliant, and full of identity. And then the 90s come, perhaps the most familiar point for some people, but still distant for those born later. It was a world in transition, analog and digital coexisting at the same time, not knowing exactly what would come next. These photos are not just records of the past. They are fragments of a world that once existed, but today seems almost strange. Objects, clothes, habits, and moments that are no longer part of our routine, but that have shaped everything we know today. And maybe that's why they attract so much attention, because they show that time not only passes, it completely changes what we consider normal. If you've made it this far, you've probably noticed something simple. The past doesn't seem distant only in the calendar, but also in the way it presents itself to our eyes today. And when you look more closely, you realize that it's not just the scenery that has changed. It's the way of living. In the old photos of the 50s, 60s, and 70s, almost everything was face-to-face. People found themselves with no digital distractions, no small screens in their pockets, no notifications interrupting conversations. Time seemed slower, but also more direct. In the 80s and 90s, this transition begins to become visible. Children playing in the street, family parties with film cameras, calls made on landlines, and the anxiety of waiting for a photo to be developed days later to know how it turned out. Today, this may seem strange. Wait, go to a specific place to communicate? Not having immediate access to everything? For those born into the digital age, these ideas seem almost impossible to imagine. But these images show exactly that. A world where haste did not dominate everything. Where the record of a moment had weight, because it was not infinite. Each photo taken had a cost, a care, an intention. And maybe that's what makes this collection so powerful. It's not just nostalgia, it's contrast. The contrast between a world that needed time to happen and one that learned to speed things up. Between handwritten letters and instant messages. Between physical albums and endless galleries in the cloud. Between the silence of a street in the afternoon and the constant noise of notifications. These old photos aren't just here to show you how things were. They are here to remind you that reality was once completely different, and that at some point, what seems normal today will also one day be seen as the distant past. And when you get to the end of this visual journey, an inevitable question remains. What of our photos today will seem meaningless to those who come after us? And that's the most curious part of all. Because just as today we look at these old photos and try to understand a world we don't live in, someone in the future will also look at our images and feel the same strangeness. They will see records of screens shining everywhere, people gathered but looking down, streets full of technology invisible in everyday life. They will see frozen moments from an era that, for us, is still present, but that for them will already be history. Photos from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s seem distant now, but one day they were simply the present, and that completely changes the way you look at each image here. Nothing was old when it was happening. Everything was just life happening in real time. And maybe that's what these photos really reveal, not just how the world was, but how time transforms everything without asking permission. Today, they may seem confusing to those who have never lived through those decades. But for those who have lived, each image carries sounds, smells, emotions, and memories that do not fit into the frame of a camera. And as you move through these photos, it becomes clear that the past is not just something distant. It is a set of small moments that were once as real as now, and that, inevitably, will also become just another collection of images, waiting for someone in the future to try to understand what they meant. And when this idea consolidates, you begin to realize something even deeper. Time does not erase the past. It only changes the way it is seen. These old photos from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s are like frozen windows. They don't move, they don't talk, they don't explain, but they still say a lot. A simple smile in front of an old car, a classroom with chalkboard, a busy street with no screens, no digital signs, no light distractions. All this seems simple, but it carries an invisible complexity. Life as it was before modernist speed. And the most interesting thing is that, at that time, no one imagined that one day it would seem so distant. For them, it was just everyday life, or normal, the ordinary, just like today. This means that every image you see here is not just nostalgia. It is a silent warning that the normal always changes. And it changes faster than we realize. Years pass. Technologies evolve, habits transform, and what seemed essential in one decade may disappear in the next. And when you look at all of this in sequence, decade by decade, it feels almost like watching a continuous transformation of humanity in slow motion. But the strongest is yet to come, because once you understand all this, it becomes impossible to look at the present in the same way. Every current photo, every moment recorded today, is already beginning to become part of the past, even as it happens. And this brings a last reflection, almost inevitable. Perhaps the true meaning of these old photos is not only to show how the world was, but to remember that everything we are living now is also already becoming history.